It seems like Jalen Hurts is not being respected. I'll tell you why I believe that's happening on this edition of Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On NFL podcast. Today, of course, I'm joined by my buddy Kevin Oestricher from Locked On Ravens, and he's going to sit here and help us go through some of these subjects today that we've come up. We're going to talk a lot about quarterbacks. We'll end the show leading it, talking about Baker Mayfield and whether or not he can take the Bucs on a deep run. We're going to stay in that division, slide up a little bit north to the Queen City, talk about those Panthers. This might be their year. And at the very top of the show, we'll talk about Jalen Hurts still not being appreciated. But first, I have to let you know that wherever you get your podcast, make sure you tap into that location. Whether you watch or listen, we will be there each and every single day to give you a show like the one today that is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Kevin Oestricher, we're going to go right to it and get right to it. Everybody's doing a top 100 list, including us. That's the one that's the most important. Ours debuts on Wednesday, July 16th, the Locked On NFL Top 100 that was done by all of the hosts on the Locked On Podcast Network. And I'm interested to see where they have Jalen Hurts ranked, because other people's list that ain't as good as ours is coming out. And Jalen Hurts seems like he's too low for a lot of folks. Where do you rank him in the pantheon or in the list in that whole world, in the ecosystem of quarterbacks? And you know a lot about a quarterback that gets disrespected all the time.
Yeah, talked about it this morning over on Locked On Ravens. It just is what it is. For Jalen Hurts, though, I think he's number 5. I think the 4 quarterbacks that I have over him are the 4 I think are the best in the league. It's Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. No particular order there. Those are the 4 that I think are better than Jalen Hurts. Now, there are a lot of different criteria that you can, I guess, put together for where a guy is ranked and why a guy is ranked where he is. And sometimes it's unclear of like, okay, what are you judging a guy based off of? Because I think Jalen Hurts is extremely talented. We've seen him be a player that has propelled Philadelphia, obviously, to a Super Bowl championship, but to runs prior to that. I just feel like with Jalen, we saw the quote-unquote not peak of his career, but like the best season of his career was a couple of years ago. These past couple from Jalen Hurts standards, I mean, I remember us talking about it this past year, early in the year. It's like, man, Jalen Hurts does not look like the Jalen Hurts of a couple of years ago. And I think that is why he gets disrespected on these lists, to where I think that we are in such a, 2 years ago feels so long ago. And that's where, and I get that these lists are year by year, right? 2024, 2023, 2022. But just because a guy doesn't have the box score stats that he had a couple of years ago doesn't mean that he's a worse player. Guys get better in efficiency metrics, advanced analytics, other things, where I talk about this with Lamar Jackson all the time. Lamar had 36 touchdowns passing in his second season in the league. If he got better every year, we'd have 70 passing touchdowns a year by now. It never is linear in terms of a guy is just going to improve every single season. I also think very quickly, Wig, that players like Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and others, they get discredited due to the talent around them. And they don't get credit because they have good rosters. And I think that that is not fair, because other players at that position get applauded for having good players at those positions. And I think that it doesn't matter, right? Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, they are talent elevators. They elevate the talent around them. They should be celebrated for that, not torn down about it.
Let's go up to Locked On Eagles. Listen to my man Louie as he talks about this subject.
I am rooting hard for Jalen Hurts to win regular season MVP. Just think about it. Jalen Hurts is pretty much at this point done everything a football player could do. And not just in the NFL, but college. Like, he's won a national championship, even if he wasn't starting. He was a big reason Alabama won a national championship. He started in multiple national title games. He won multiple SEC titles. He was a Heisman runner-up. He's Super Bowl MVP. He has a ring now. What's one thing Jalen Hurts hasn't done in his career? what's one thing also that could really silence the critics? Because even winning Super Bowl MVP last year still didn't really shut up the Jalen Hurts critics.
All right, he's right about that. It did not shut up the critics. That's exactly why we're talking about it today. I will say this in his favor. He's had like 3 offensive coordinators in like the last 4 or 5 years, right? I mean, one of them got promoted and got a job somewhere else, like Shane Steichen or whoever. And then I think Steichen, was it him or Gannon that was the offense?
Yeah, it was Steichen. Yeah,
it was Steichen, and then Brian Johnson, and that didn't work out. And now Kellen Moore, and now he's on his 4th, right? Here's the thing that I give him grace for, because even in the Super Bowl that they lost, I remember this game vividly because I was in Jamaica. This is before I knew I needed hip surgery, and I was over there on some of the worst roads ever. And I laid up in the bed all day because my hip and my back was killing me. He was the best player on the field in a loss to the Chiefs. And he would have won the MVP hands down had they won that game, which they were right into it in the very end. So he has a propensity to play well in these big games. And that has to mean something, and it has to amount to more than just him being a placeholder on a team with a lot of talent. I will tell you this. You can't beat a guy up for having a lot of talent and then beat a guy up for not having enough talent like they do Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence just until last year with Brian Thomas Jr., there wasn't one player on this team that anybody thought that was good enough, or offensive lineman, anything like that. Philly has every single one of their skilled players on offense is ranked in the top 6 in salary. They can do that because of that defense, man. So I say pump the brakes on people thinking that he's in that upper tier, but that very next tier, he shouldn't apologize to anybody for the people that he has around him. I know the people in New York that root for the Jets wish they had a whole bunch of talent around them. They did something to keep one of their good players. This new organization says, you know what? We haven't had a lot of the good players here. When we finally get one, we're going to keep them. And that's exactly what they did with Garrett Wilson. Check this out.
The Jets lock up Garrett Wilson long-term. I'm John, the host of Locked On Jets, and the New York Jets have reached a long-term contract extension with wide receiver Garrett Wilson. It is a 4-year extension worth $130 million. $90 million of that is guaranteed, so it comes to an average annual salary of about $32.5 million per year. That's a top 5 salary at the wide receiver position, and it is a good move for the New York Jets. Number one, this team finally has some young talent, and when you have young talent, you want to make sure they are wearing green and white through their prime years. Number two, Garrett Wilson's the most dynamic player the Jets have on offense. You can argue that he's not a top 5 receiver. Maybe he doesn't deserve top 5 wide receiver money. Let me tell you something. There's no way the Jets would be able to spend that money on a better player than Garrett Wilson. For more on the Jets, tune into the Locked On Jets podcast with new episodes each day, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is something I said about the Jaguars. You got to start stacking talent and get guys to their second contracts. The Jaguars were notorious for not allowing guys to get to their second deal, a la Jalen Ramsey, a la Leonard Fournette. They were just letting Dante Fowler. They had so many guys that did not get to their second contract. Now, with Quentin Williams on his second contract, one of the best players in the league at his position, Sauce Gardner is going to get his too. Now you got Garrett Wilson. They're starting to make a nice little run where they're stacking up guys that they're giving second contracts to, and that's how you eventually build a house.
Yeah, John made an awesome point there. You know, it's the Jets aren't going to be able to spend money on anybody who is better than Garrett Wilson right there. I mean, is Jamar Chase all of a sudden going to, become a Jet, Justin Jefferson? No. So what do? You spend the money and you get the guys, so you keep them in the building, right? You keep these guys in the building. And for a Jets team that I think is looking to turn over a new leaf here, I think this is certainly a big move for them. And plus, for these wide receiver contracts, this is just the league. Like, these guys get paid. These star receivers, it is what it is. DK Metcalf just got $131 million from the Steelers. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, you're in that top 5 conversation. But, if there was Garrett Wilson wanted a little more here, what's $2, $3, $4 million in a league, Wig, where the salary cap's going to go up $1 bajillion anyway? Like, this deal's going to look like a steal in the next 2 years because of all these wide receiver contracts that are going to come down the pipeline. So I think, to me, this was good business by the Jets. Garrett Wilson gets a deal that he deserves, and hopefully Justin Fields can help elevate his career even more, and those two can be a good pair together.
No doubt about it. We will hit the Carolina Panthers the second we return here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with stress or ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with the killer last-minute deals. Man, I know I'm just tired of scrolling all the time. I just want to see how much the ticket costs and where my seat's going to be, and Game Time can always give me that information. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Moving and grooving here on Locked On NFL. We promised that we were going to talk about the Carolina Panthers. What am I going to say about them? I think the Carolina Panthers actually have some blue sky in front of them where it's only going to get better. Now, some people may say, well, how could it possibly get much worse? And I'll probably just turn and point due northeast and point over to Cleveland and say it could be that, right? There you go, Kevin. I knew I was going to stick a Cleveland jab in there somewhere, right? But no, seriously, I honestly think that Dave Canales has done a really, really good job. I like the way he handled Bryce Young. Look, the players, they weren't following him. He knew that he sat him down. I guess he got some different wind or a different idea. He put him back in, and then they started to play pretty good or decent based on their standard. Listen to Julian Council as he tells you how that offense can improve this year.
If they can get up to 24, 25 points per game this upcoming season, I do think that will probably be good enough to keep them in contention for the wild card, and with a better defense, maybe in contention to win the NFC South this upcoming season. So those, to me, are realistic expectations of the Panthers offense to be a far better passing offense than they've been the last couple of years, be a top 10 rushing offense, and to be able to add 4 to 5 more points per game to their scoring total, be able to score closer to 39, 40% of their drives this upcoming year. This is an offense that is built to be able to be competitive in the NFC, in the NFL this upcoming season.
Listen, man, I'm perplexed a little bit because I want to cheer for Bryce Young because I kind of compared him to Drew Brees coming out, and that's kind of lazy a little bit because he's small. But I am going to tell you this, it kind of does remind me of another little quarterback, and that's Kyler Murray. He's not the runner Kyler Murray is, but it's like you can watch him sometimes and be so enamored with their talent, but then it's just like something's missing in the winning department, like in that franchise quarterback. We were just talking about lists that we have coming out. I can't quite buy Bryce Young for the same reasons I can't quite buy Kyler Murray, because it looks good. It just doesn't usually lead to winning.
I think that, to me, first of all, I'm very impressed with how Bryce Young handled that situation. You know, he could have easily just said, man, they don't believe in me. Get me out of here. I want a different situation. And, you know, we've seen with those Carolina quarterbacks, Wig, if you get out of there, you have a decent chance to improve your career. Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, etc. So he could have done that, but he put his head down. He worked. He got that opportunity again, and he made sure he wasn't going to lose it. And so I think, to me, the exciting thing is the pieces that Bryce Young has around him. Obviously, they have year 2 of Xavier Legette. I know everybody's expecting a jump from him. Ted McMillan, I think, is going to be really good for them. And then, just the steady vet in Adam Thielen. A lot of people also, I know Hunter Renfrow is trying to make his comeback. Maybe he can be that steady possession receiver he was with the Raiders. But I think for me, we saw it like it was night and day improvement, where I think Bryce Young looked a little overwhelmed at times. And it wasn't like the offensive line needed to improve there. It wasn't all his fault. I'm not going to pin everything on Bryce Young there, but I think when he came back, he looked more poised. He looked calm, cool, and collected. And I think that even though that's not a box score stat or something you can measure quantifiably, it makes a huge difference, especially when you figured out the game, I think, just got slower for him. It slowed down. And that, to me, was a really big part of it. So him now going into this year, and there was the whole thing with CJ Stroud and him. And I think, with CJ having the rookie year he did, everyone, CJ should have been the pick. CJ should have been the pick. And I'm sure for Bryce Young, it's hindsight a year after, you got to give it time to play out. And CJ, compared to his rookie year, struggled it wasn't terrible, but he struggled. Bryce Young, I think, improved. I'm curious to see, honestly, what the narrative about those two is going to be for them in year 3.
Oh, they're joined at the hip for real, man. They're joined at the hip. Like, ironically, I mentioned hips. I got a bad one, but they're joined at hips. I'm telling you, Kevin, man, and it's going to be something that we continue to discuss. Something that might be missing a lot of people right now about the San Francisco 49ers. This might be the first year where they look a little bit different because they're so young and the expectations go down. But I'm going to warn y'all about something. They let a lot of people go in free agency this year. They retained some folks, but they let a lot of people go. But when you think about the people that they let go, they had rookies that actually stepped in and played well. Ricky Pearsall played well at wide receiver, so they let go Deebo Samuel, right? Renardo Green played well at corner, so they let Travarius Ward get out of there. They had a safety who played really, really well, and so they let another safety go. I hope they can duplicate that this year with their young players because they're going to be heavily relying on them. Here's the guys from Locked On 49ers talking about the young talent that might all have to play for the 49ers.
Can 3 rookies start on the 49ers defensive line? I think by midway through the season, it would be even a disappointment, Croc, for me, and maybe for the 49ers, and maybe John Lynch, if Mykel Williams, CJ West, and Alfred Collins aren't all starting on the 49ers defensive line. So can 3 rookies start? Yes. Will 3 rookies start? That's the camp battles that I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, Croc didn't get that answer out of there, but I'm telling you, man, I was sitting there looking at him like, that's a lot. That's a lot for one position group. But CJ West is a 3 technique. Alfred Collins is a pure nose guard. And the other kid, Michael Williams, is a pass rusher who can, once he's healthy, he's going to be on the opposite of Nick Bosa. What do you think about 3 rookies starting for the 49ers, and will it set them back a little bit?
I mean, it is a lot, and I think with rookies, you do have to anticipate, rookie growing pains and the ups and downs that come with it. But if a player is talented, I mean, we've seen rookies all across the league throughout this league's history come in and contribute. Now, maybe the thought process here is, man, if we start 3 rookies, one of them has to contribute, right? Like, one of them has to be a star. So maybe
got a hit.
Maybe that's what the 49ers are going for. But you're right. All 3 of those guys are talented, and I think having Nick Bosa be that guy next to him does help. But, the fact that they also had Fred Warner in the middle of that defense helps. Like, you have the veterans around them, but, 3 rookies is a lot, especially in a division where, we know that Los Angeles is the favorite there. They're a Super Bowl contender in the NFC this year. Seattle's going to try to get back on track with Sam Darnold and Cooper Kupp now, that kind of new look. I'm not really necessarily worried about Arizona. Sorry to Kyler Murray and company. But I think, to me, the 49ers have a chance to be like that dark horse. Everybody's forgotten about us. Our roster looks different. And again, in sports, there is name value. So when you talk about like Deebo Samuel gone and Ricky Pearsall in, people know who Deebo Samuel is. They know that name. And they're like, oh, okay, this guy's a star, top whatever in the league. And Pearsall doesn't have that same resume yet. But we know that Deebo, with the injuries, and he's slowed down a little bit. Not that he's not talented. He is. But they couldn't keep both him and Ayuk on the same team. So you had to pivot. They had a plan in place. It's a lot of younger guys. But we've seen teams that have younger players go out there and dominate. I think the biggest question to me is still Brock Purdy. It's not about 3 rookies on a defensive line. It's not about all the young talent. It's about, is Brock Purdy worth the money that the 49ers just gave him, and can he step up to that? I don't know the answer to that question. I think he's a good quarterback, but is he the right quarterback to lead the 49ers through a Super Bowl? I mean, look, he's gotten there and obviously fallen short. Can he get over that hump? Can he get back there? That's the big question.
They got to get everybody healthy. They cannot have guys on the stretcher and sitting over there with baseball caps on. That's McCaffrey. They got to keep Fred Warner upright. They just have to get healthy. Trent Williams, all of those dudes have to be healthy for them to do this. But I'll tell you 2 things that gives me, I'm not going to say pause, but it gives me a little bit of motivation to think that they're going to do it. Chris Kurasek is a very, very good defensive line coach. I mean, around the league is known for his enthusiasm and his ability to extract stuff out of players. And then they're getting Robert Saleh back. And I think that's a big deal because he's had a lot of success running defenses where young players have played well, whether that be in Seattle, with his stops in Jacksonville, and of course, as a head coach with the New York Jets. So we'll see how that goes and see how that works. I want to move down to Tampa with my man James Yarko in just a second. I think Baker Mayfield has a real shot to let Tampa be in a position to make a deep run and actually win playoff games. I'll tell you about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Everybody you talk to, including here on this show, we always mention that the team nobody wanted to play except the Commanders were the Tampa Bay Bucks, because they had beat Philly and they beat Philly, beat Detroit, and just about whooped Kansas City too if they hadn't gotten all those injuries at the wide receiver position all in one game. So everybody was saying the Bucks are the scary team. They were actually winning against the Commanders with 5 minutes to go, and the Commanders milked the clock and beat them. And that led to the Commanders then going and beating Detroit. So it could have been them in that position. James Yarko from Locked On Bucks thinks that if Baker Mayfield plays okay, they can get back to that spot and maybe go even a little bit further. Listen to this.
For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it meant emerging as the top team in the NFC. The simulation showed that the Bucs have over a 70% chance to make the playoffs, a nearly 25% chance to win in the divisional round, a 13.5% chance to win the NFC championship game, and a 6.98% chance to win the Super Bowl. All in all, the supercomputer deemed the Bucs the most likely NFC champion in 2025. They have the fourth best odds in the league to win the title and the best odds of any team in the NFC.
Man, even more than the Eagles, probably because, well, they play in the NFC East and no NFC East team is repeated as division champ in over 2 decades. So maybe that's what it is, but I'm thinking about the Rams too, or maybe people think that's a tougher division. Tampa has a shot now to get home field. You think it'll be enough?
I think Tampa's a sneaky team here. I mean, I do. And you kind of look at their roster with the wide receivers, and I mean, they have a bajillion wide receivers.
Yeah, man, they got them.
But they also like the running back position. Bucky Irving was one of the big surprises of the year last season. He was awesome. And you look at these Tampa stats here, they were the 3rd best rushing offense and 6th best passing offense in the league last year. You know, this team was good last season. But I think that, again, you look at Baker Mayfield is a flashy quarterback, but I don't think they were necessarily a flashy team, is I think it was the issue. You know, like Philly with Jalen Hurts and those star-studded roster, that's a flashy team, right? The Rams with Matthew Stafford and, you know, how they perform, Kyron Williams and all that, like, that's a flashy team. I just don't think Tampa was flashy, but they were good. Like, they're one of those teams that's just like, you know, you bring your lunch pail to work, you get the job done every Sunday, you head out of there with the win, and then that's that. That, to me, is who I think Tampa was last year. And I think, again, bringing back Chris Godwin and getting him back, Mike Evans as well, like, you have the talent there. I think, to me, the big step for them is going to be pass defense. They were middling last season, about 15th in the league. If they can get that up to top 10 to kind of match where their rush defense was last season, it's clear they're the favorite in the division. I wholeheartedly agree with everything there. But can they take that next step? You know, the NFL is a lot more wide open than I think people make it out to be right now. Like, Philadelphia obviously is a very talented roster.
Detroit.
Detroit's a big team too there. We talked about the Rams. Kansas City obviously is the team to beat in the AFC with Buffalo, Baltimore, etc. But honestly, any of these top teams can win it. The Commanders, obviously, another one in the NFC you got to keep an eye on. But I think Tampa has a good shot here. Because sometimes, Wig, the teams, if you're the most, aren't the flashy ones. They're the team that just shows up, gets the job done, and leaves quietly. And that is what I think Tampa is right now.
Yeah, and, you know, losing offensive coordinators 2 years in a row,
Sure.
They were very rhythmic on offense. And if they can keep that up, we may have to do think pieces on them losing coaches each and every year. All these people that say you need an offensive-minded head coach, so you don't lose your system every time a guy gets promoted. If Tampa keeps doing this, they did it with Canales, they've done it with Liam Cohen, and now if they do it with a 3rd coach, people are going to say, well, ain't nobody worried about a defensive head coach, because if you do it the right way, you can replace your offensive coordinator with someone who's very, very similar. Philly's going to have to do that again. We mentioned at the top of the show. Why? Because Kellen Moore is now in New Orleans. I think about 10 teams would not shock me if they won. You named a lot of them if they won the Super Bowl. New Orleans ain't one of them, Jack. But I do think they have improved on offense. And I'm kind of impressed with some of the things that they've done and how they're going to be able to slow play this and actually improve this team without maybe improving the record very much. Here's Ross Jackson talking about Kellen Moore and what he's doing.
So everything from the routes that were chosen to be distributed as primary reads to the targets in the area to where the ball was being pushed. All of these things aren't just about the individual effort of the quarterback. This is about game plan. And I think that Kellen Moore shows you in his previous game plan with Philadelphia that there are things that he can bring over to these quarterbacks that aren't just about can the quarterback make the throw, but you could actually work towards what it is that these quarterbacks are already going to, what you're already going to want to be doing with these quarterbacks anyway. Get the ball out quickly, keep your offense on the field, go for your best players in the best situations, and hit routes that are going to allow receivers to be able to turn up and go and get some extra yardage.
This is something that Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence have said in Jacksonville. It's called, we're going to give you answers pre-snap, right? We're not just going to wait until the play develops for you to have to figure. You're going to have answers pre-snap. This is going to make things easier. This is going to probably enable you to get first downs. And what it's also going to do is allow you to keep drives going and to be able to control the ball and matriculate the ball down the field. It sounds like that's what Kellen Moore is doing in New Orleans, and that's why I like their start already as a new organization.
Yeah, it's about getting the right philosophies in, and Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to start somewhere, and I think for the Saints, is Tyler Shuck going to lead this team to a Super Bowl? I would highly. We'd have to go on FanDuel and look at those odds we did last week and talk about some of those Super Bowl matchups, but I think to me, these are steps in the right direction, right? Where there's still talent on the roster. I think people are chalking up the Saints as like, oh, they're going to be a 2-win team this season. I'm not there on them. Like, I don't think they're going to be good, but I don't think it's going to be like they're going to lose 15 plus games. Like, I'm not there. But to me, I think that this can be a good start to what is going to be a little bit of a reset for them here, where they're going to have to start, these veteran players are eventually going to start leaving. And I think the Saints are preparing for life after those guys. And it's the right decision where, to me, I think that you have an opportunity to really see what you have and understand that they can build back their talent throughout drafts. And, it's Ross and I have a running joke about the Saints cap situation. They're always $1 bajillion over the cap. I mean,
I was just about to say they're $427 million over the cap every year. I'm trying to figure. I'm waiting for a year that they're not. You know what I mean?
if there was a definition, if there was a picture definition of kicking the can down the road, it'd just be the Saints logo. Like it just be the Saints logo, because that's what they have done. It was going to come back to bite them at some point. We know that salary cap situation is what it is. They've done a great job navigating it, and everyone's like, how are they doing this every single season? Well, it's because they have guys that they know what they're doing in that cap room. But as these vets get older and the championships still aren't being won with them, the leaf is starting to turn, and obviously that started with Derek Carr being out, Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, and these younger quarterbacks coming in. I don't think they're a terrible, horrible, no good team. I don't think they're a great one. But I do think that NFC South is wide open. The Saints are the one team, though, where I'm like, I'm not really seeing it this year. But that doesn't mean in 2 years, when they're able to have some of those vets go out the door, bring in new talent, and you have Kellen Moore. Like, Kellen Moore should not be judged completely unless it goes horribly, terribly wrong in like an off-the-field way on this year, right?
Yeah.
It should be a multiple-year process for him where he has a shot with a somewhat competitive team. The Saints will be competitive this year, but I don't think it's like they're winning double-digit games competitive.
I gotta stop you for a minute. You giving them too much credit as being good with the cap. I told Ross Jackson every time the Saints cut somebody, I sent him a picture of good times, James and Florida Evans. I said, they scratching and surviving, dog. They just figuring out how to make it, by eating bad meat and oatmeal every day. They ain't no financial wizards down there. They Florida and James Evans, Jack. That's good times. Scratching and surviving, hanging in the child line, and they just figure it out by the end of each episode. That's what that is. I'm gonna send this to Ross too. So ain't nobody giving you no compliments around here for that foolishness y'all got going.
I got your back, Russ. I got your back.
Yeah. All right. Hey man, you always got our back, and you had our back too when we all got together and did the top 100 for the NFL. Let me explain something to you. The Locked On NFL Top 100 will be released on Wednesday, July 16th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Locked On Sports Today. The NFL Top 100 was voted on by the NFL host of Locked On, and there are some stunners. Don't miss your favorite players finding out where they're going to be ranked. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, and make sure you tap in because we are going to have some reaction shows, especially if y'all ain't got my man Brian Thomas Jr. high enough. I'm gonna rip the whole panel, and y'all gonna when I see you, y'all gonna have to catch these hands.
That's my guy. That's my guy.
That's right, man. All right, this is Locked On NFL. That's my man Kevin Oestricher. I'm Tony Wiggins. The Madman will be back in the morning with you. Tyler Rowland waking you up, and I'll slide back through here in the barbershop in the afternoon. Kevin, we'll see you next week. Y'all take care of each other. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.